Hey everybody, today I'm gonna be walking you through how to install Arch Linux using Mac operating system. Since it might be a bit difficult to install it for the first time, we're gonna use the virtual machine to spin up Arch Linux. Mac offers multiple virtual machines. I'm gonna stick with UTM. So I'm gonna go ahead and download UTM installer. Once it's done, I'm gonna add it to the dock. We can proceed with Arch Linux installation. ISO is basically, if you remember good old days where you used USB flash drive to install Microsoft or any other operating system, that's the same, but it's going to happen within our machine. So we're going to use this ISO to spin up temporary operating system, which is going to be our installer. I'm going to spend time setting up the virtual machine. Once the download is complete, I'm gonna create a new machine. After that, I pick Emulate, Linux, and select the ISO that we just downloaded. Here we go. Next up, I have to select memory. I'm gonna use probably 12 gigabytes for now. Next, I have to select how much storage we want. 256 should be fine. It should be complete. I'm gonna name it Arch. Finally, click Run on top of the virtual machine. So what it does, it actually loads our USB drive. In the meantime, I have to do a shout out. In case you're gonna have issues with the installation, please use the installation guide. It's written by brilliant guys who can explain complex things in an easy manner. So we boot it into the system. I'm gonna run lsblk to list the drives that we have. SDA disk represents our future operating system. Next step is we have to create partitions on our operating system. I'm gonna use cgdisk and we're gonna call def SDA. As you can see, it is free space at the moment. We're gonna need to split it to partitions that are required by Linux. We're gonna go ahead and click new. First sector, we don't click anything, we press enter. The size of this partition is gonna be 600 megabytes and the code is gonna be EF00. The name is gonna be boot. This is the boot partition that will be basically starting to read our kernel. After this one, Linux usually has a swap partition. Same thing, we're gonna click enter. Memory is 8 gigs. The code should be 8200. And the name, we're gonna call it swap. Swap partition is basically when we have things that we cannot fit into the memory. We will be writing that to disk to avoid overflow. Last partition is gonna be storage. We're gonna press enter. Next, gonna press enter. That will result in claiming all the available memory. The code, press enter. We call it this. So as you can see, we have 3 partitions now. We're gonna write them to disk. It's gonna ask us, are we sure? We type yes. Quit. And I run lsblk. We can see that now we have 3 partitions. First one 600 megs on boot, 8 gigs on swap, and 250 approximately for the system. In order to use the newly created partitions, we're gonna go ahead and format them. First, we're gonna start off with the boot partition. To format it, we need to run mkfs.fat -f32 def sda1. Good. Next up, we need to format the swap partition. So we call make swap def sda2 and then swap on def sda2. Lastly, I need to create ext4 file system, and you do that by typing mkfs.ext4. This should clean up the remaining system. We have to create the Linux directory structure by mounting our new partitions to live operating system. In other words, connect boot and system disks to our live ISO. First step is to mount system partition called def sda3 to mount directory called mnt. And after that, I'm gonna create a new folder within this partition. It's gonna be called boot. And once we created the boot folder, we can mount the boot partition to the same folder. And if we run df, you can see that last two lines show us that our partitions are currently mounted to our live USB or ISO that we are using. Now we are ready to install a new system from scratch, meaning that we're gonna install required packages for the basic operating system to work, and it is achieved by using pacstrap. We run pacstrap mnt base devel packages, and also added vim and vim to the end. We need to persist the Linux directory structure that we mounted so that it can be loaded after reboot. I'm gonna redirect the output of that command into fstab. This fstab file is going to be used by operating system to basically replicate the same setup once we reboot. We are ready to start using our new operating system. We call archroot/mount, and that command jumps us from live USB into the actual Arch Linux system that we want and intend to use in the future. So the 256 gigabyte system that we created. Before we can continue with the rest of the installation, we need to persist the time zone that should be used by the machine. And you do that by creating a symlink, and you can do that by persisting the needed closest time zone into common local time file. I'm gonna use Europe Copenhagen since it's closest. We need to synchronize the time on the machine with global time. And you do that by running hwclock sys2hc. Next step is to basically link what language should be used within our operating system and to generate locale. We need to find US UTF-8 key mapping and uncomment it. We need to persist our keyboard layout in a file called locale.conf so that after the next reboot we can use the same one. Next step is similar. We need to give our operating system a custom name. I'm gonna call it main machine. We need to set up a password for the root user. Type passwd and write down the password 2 times. Next, we need to create a user that is going to be a normal user, not a master account. We're gonna type user@ g users wheel storage power. And the name is going to be Bane. And the same thing, we're going to have to add password to Bane. At long last, we are ready to install the operating system. We're going to use pacman, default package manager, and we're going to need Linux and Linux firmware. This will install the core operating system as well as generate an image that should be used when we first boot into our system. The next step would be to install the bootloader. Bootloader is responsible for loading the kernel as well as configuring the parameters that will be used by the operating system. By default, I'm using GRUB. Install GRUB as well as EFI boot manager. Once it's installed, we need to configure GRUB so that it is able to use the kernel image that we created earlier. To do that, I'm gonna go ahead and type the GRUB install, specify the architecture that we want to use. It's going to be called x86 64 EFI. The EFI directory, we call it boot. We need to call the bootloader ID. It's going to be GRUB. As you can see, it shows no errors. Now we need to configure it. So we're gonna go ahead and write grub make config. Set output to be boot grub cfg. And as you can see, it was able to find the images from our kernel, and that means we are ready to reboot. So press Ctrl D to quit operating system and type reboot. It's going to stop our live USB drive, and it's going to spin up the actual system that we have been setting up. So now it's independent and it's able to use all the components that we created. As you can see, it shows GRUB. It might be a bit confusing because I'm trying to rush through this installation. That's why I highly recommend using the installation guide in case you get stuck, because it covers any questions that you might potentially have. We are prompted with the login screen. I'm gonna use Bane credentials to go into the system, type the password, and we are running the actual system. I'm typing uname A to see the architecture. We are done setting up Arch Linux. Now we are finally able to set up the Linux environment to what we prefer. So feel free to explore different desktop managers. I'm gonna link a couple of videos that I think can be really useful for post-installation procedures. Because right now it's simply a console. You cannot really do much here unless you're satisfied with the console. But yeah, that's how you run Arch Linux on Mac. Hopefully it could save some time for you.